don't beat yourself before you step on the field, because they put on their shirt just like you do. They put on their uniform, the rest of their uniform, just like you do. They put on two shoes. They put on socks. They are equal in every aspect, right? They may be bigger, faster, stronger than you, but that doesn't mean they're going to beat you.
Welcome to the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Leichtweis, author of the book, The Power of Respect in Business. Charlie is one of America's foremost authorities on respect and leadership development. And now, here's Charlie.
My guest today is Mr. Phil Wellington. Phil is the Vice President of Federal Accounts for Siemens Healthineers North America. He's chartered with strategically retaining, growing, and evolving the Health Aligners business with the United States federal government agencies. He has 20 plus years of experience in healthcare sales, healthcare supply chain, competitive strategy, corporate development, business building, and executive leadership. Prior to joining Siemens Healthineers, he served as Vice President of Supply Chain Services at Premier Healthcare Alliance, a leading healthcare improvement company. At Premier, Phil was responsible for providing leadership in building their direct sourcing business, designing and leading the digital transformation of their alternate site business, and their supply chain operations. Prior to his time at Premier, Phil spent a decade at the preeminent consulting firm Booz Allen and Hamilton, and early in his career, he spent time in the investment banking division of Prudential Securities. Phil is active with the National Association of Corporate Directors, NACD, at both the national level and the Charlotte chapter. He is presently on the board of directors of Roots and Wings, a New York-based charity dedicated to help people lift themselves out of poverty, and the board of directors of Charlotte Soccer Academy Palmetto Football Club. Phil holds a master's degree in business administration from the University of Florida and holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Georgetown University, where he was also honored in the Georgetown Athletic Hall of Fame. He resides with his wife and 3 children in Charlotte, North Carolina. I welcome Phil to the Power of Respect podcast. Hey, Phil, good to see you.
Good to see you, Charlie.
Thank you for being a guest on our podcast. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Me as well.
So why don't we start with just telling me how you got started in your career?
Well, I hope you have a lot of time, but well, you know, as you said, I went to Georgetown University and majored in biology pre-med. My father was a surgeon, and I thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon early in my career. But I played soccer at Georgetown, and one of the opportunities I had was to play professional soccer, and I fell in love with the game at a young age and had the opportunity to play professionally for 4 years, and then realized I didn't love medicine or the practice of medicine the way my dad did, so I decided to go back and get an MBA in finance and competitive strategy, which led me to New York and investment banking. And then I was able to start working with the great consulting firm in Booz Allen Hamilton. I was with them for 10 years in New York and in DC. And then was basically recruited down to Charlotte to work with Premier. So I was with Premier about 7 years, and really I always joke around with folks that I really got a PhD in healthcare at Premier, in the fact that I was able to see everything that a health system buys and where it lies in the importance of being able to deliver care. And so then after that, I was actually recruited to Siemens to bring the federal government experience I gained with Booz Allen Hamilton for 10 years, and the healthcare knowledge that I brought to the table from Premier, and be able to work with Siemens federal government business. So we work with every agency across the federal government that consumes healthcare products that we make, and you know, some of the biggest customers in the world for Siemens.
Great. So along that career path, you've got significant leadership experience leading and advising organizations across numerous venues of business, both consulting and in corporate world. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a leader, and how did you tackle them? And perhaps you could share, examples of successful outcomes and maybe even some less successful outcomes.
Well, that's good. It's a great question. I think I never look at I never look at outcomes as being unsuccessful. I look at them as that there's always better options than others that we face, and I always looked at you didn't necessarily. I guess it's the innate athlete in me that you didn't really lose a game. You won experience for the next time. So I think every step along my journey as a leader has been about how do I learn from whatever the results are on the back end, and how does that make it so we don't either make the same mistakes going forward, which to me are habits, but we learn from them and are able to make better decisions as we go forward. There's so many numerous projects where you've had these learning experiences, from being a new leader or new to a company, new to a team, and you're inheriting projects or programs, and and the bigger the project or the program, the more complex they are, and the more that you need a team of people's knowledge, not just your own, to be able to complete them, right? A multi-million-dollar project, tens of millions of dollar project, are complex, and to be able to deliver to a customer who has expectations, right? And to manage those expectations along the way, and be able to understand at times the customer is going to get frustrated. At times you're going to have things that are out of your control, right? But to go back to the foundation of what control you can control. I can always choose every morning I wake up to treat everybody the same, right? And I think it goes to a topic very near and dear to your heart about you can choose to treat everybody with respect. I use it as treat everyone as a customer, whether they work with you, for you, or they are truly an outside customer. To treat everyone as a customer, because they are acquiring your service or your product of your work in some manner, form, or manner every day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And the concept of understanding that the opportunities are a learning as much as anything else probably allows you to more readily identify the respect aspect of treating people with how they learn and what they learn from those circumstances versus criticizing for those circumstances. So I think that's a great point. And I do want to come back to that a little bit later as well. So what do you look for in leadership of a company that you would consider working for or doing business with? You've done business with a lot of agencies, certainly with the government, which is bureaucratic, investment companies, consulting companies. What do you look for in the leadership of the people you want to be in business with?
No, it's a great question, right? I mean, in people that I choose to work with, or companies I choose to take on their business, I mean, the first thing and the utmost is I look for people of integrity, right? Do you say what you're going to do? Do you respect me enough to do what you're going to say? Do that, right? And for me, thinking about that in a sense of, do you see people with humility, right? Do they treat the guys in the mailroom the same as they treat the folks in the boardroom, right? And being able to have that consistency along the way, I think is really, really important. And the emotional intelligence to be able to have the discipline to do those things each and every time, right? Because I look at, winning is not a when you choose to do things, it's an all the time trait. And to treat people the same way with consistency and respect is an all the time thing. And you can't do it part of the time, because that's how leaders lose respect.
Right, exactly. I mean, people can see and understand and feel when they're not being respected. even if it's not intended by the person delivering the message. So communication is such a key part of that process. And so when you've witnessed the concept of respect, have you witnessed how it actually impacts the relationship building and leadership development, and then also perhaps the performance of a business, whether it's at the associate level, supplier, or customer level? In other words, where respect, even though it seems to be more of an idea as opposed to a process to some people, where it actually has had a positive impact on building relationships, developing leaders, and then the performance of a company.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Charlie. I mean, I go back to just things that I've been ingrained in me growing up as an athlete, right? So, you don't, you got to go and earn your respect, right? By coming every day with the right attitude, the right work rate, the right level of intellectual curiosity to show that you have this foundation, right? And as a leader, right, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And for me, that is ever important. It's great. I love talking to you, Charlie, on Zoom, but you know, I really like talking to you in person, right? Because you miss stuff, and we've adapted as a society over the last couple years to the technology and because of where we are with the pandemic and so forth. But there's really this benefit of human interaction and really being able to prove to people that you're there for them. And how do you go about demonstrating that and being able to read the room and read people's reactions to things that you say you're going to do and to learn from them, right? To really listen to them from all parts, right? Because listening is not just hearing your words, it's understanding your body language. And right, and I can see your body language of you nodding right now, but I can't see all your body language, right? And really getting there and understanding who your own people are, who your customers are, who your supplier partners are. I think in order for you to really fire on all cylinders, you really need to understand that, and especially in the complexity of deals that certainly us at Siemens Healthineers work on.
No, that makes a lot of sense, Phil. When we think about business as a competition, I think perhaps the metaphor we might go to, which is even clearer to maybe a lot of people, sports is a competition, and they think of more of it as a representation of a direct battle. And some people do that in business, which is very unfortunate. But compare and contrast, your experience, if you will, in professional sports, playing against an opponent that is a rivalry, significant, a heated perhaps battle, and how you translate the concepts of integrity, humility, and respect into that task, whether it's a victory or not.
Yeah, I mean, look, sports are the ever equalizer, right? It's mano a mano, right? You put on. I always say this to folks: don't beat yourself before you step on the field, because they put on their shirt just like you do. They put on their uniform, the rest of their uniform, just like you do. They put on two shoes. They put on socks. They are equal in every aspect, right? They may be bigger, faster, stronger than you, but that doesn't mean they're going to beat you, right? And individually, they may play more of the individual game where you have to be a better team. And the greatest teams that I've ever seen in my life on, watching sports on TV or playing against teams are the teams that are cohesive, where the leaders of that team or the best players on that team raise the level of everybody else around them, right? Because the teammates know how much these folks put into the work to prepare, right? To prepare for every situation, and to be able to work hard, but work hard by and trying to help everyone else along and pick them up along the way too. And I think that to me is a very interesting dynamic of just teamwork, right? And to be able to respect your teammates, right? Respect your teammates enough that you're going to put in the work to prepare. Because when you
Right.
step onto the field, if you're not prepared, especially in professional sports, it's very evident.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, win, lose, or draw, if you know you've put in the work and you can look in the mirror and say, I've put in everything, I've given everything that I can, then you can go walk out of there with your head high because you're not going to win everything. Even though you may do all the right things on any given day in a professional sport, the ball does funny things and can bounce the wrong way. And it takes a little bit of luck sometimes along the way as you get into higher and higher level competition.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point here. It's not only the matter of the respect you show others by putting in the work yourself, but for the best players and the coaches that know exactly what needs to be done, that they show the respect for the effort of others and the fact that they understand other people have put in the effort to the best they can. It may or may not be good enough at a given point in time to create a victory, but they understand that and they're willing to help them either get better at it or understand where they fit best into that team.
Yeah, agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, you got to respect for you respect your opponent. You don't fear your opponent, but you respect them in the fact that they're putting in work too.
Right.
And you got to have there's a deep camaraderie amongst professional athletes. You watch them after games and you watch them go and shake each other's hand. There's a reason for that, right? They've got a lot of respect for the work and they know the work and what it takes to win games and what it takes to prepare for games. And they everyone's appreciative of that.
And I think the lesson is there in industry as well for someone who's leading a company, understanding and respecting the effort that their associates put into the attempt to meet the objectives is very important. And to understand how to help them get better, perhaps, or how to find the best place for them with respect to that process. And if they don't, if they just get mad about it, or if they are disrespectful about it, they lose the whole ball of wax in that regard, regardless of the score, if you will.
Right. I mean, ultimately, as an athlete or in business, right, you're not going to win everything. So you got to have a short memory and be able to understand, and go and look at the film or look at a lessons learned, have a lessons learned discussion, and learn from it so you can make sure that you're better for the next time. But the next day, you got to go right back to work and prepare for the next time so that you have the best chance to win, whether that's in business or sports or life. That's an important concept to have. There's a lot of people that stay stuck in the past. And the past, you can't change the past. The only thing that you can do is learn from the past so you don't repeat the past, right? And be able to take that and choose to be in the present so that you can control the future. That's what you can control. You can't control anything else.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So what were some of the most effective or important takeaways you've had about respect and leadership that you've learned during your career? Some takeaways about the combination of respect and leadership.
Yeah, I always try to talk to folks that, I always say that people don't work for me, they work with me, right? And that we are, I truly believe in the model of servant leadership, is that I'm here to serve the folks that I work with and make sure that they have everything they need so that they can be successful, and that I shouldn't step into their realm unless they ask me in, right? So that they can go and do their job because I'm hiring them for a particular skill set. And I don't want to micromanage them, right? I want to respect them for all of the experience and the talent that they bring to the table. And if they need me, they call me in. It does not mean you don't hold them accountable, right? And it's like, look, you respect their expertise, you respect their privacy, you respect their how they choose to engage, but at the end of the day, we're all in a results-driven business, and we got to hold people accountable to the results.
Right. And I think that kind of leans over into the communication side of things and how you communicate in those environments. And so what are maybe some of your most effective communication strategies, and why you might feel they were successful in dealing with those environments?
Yeah. I mean, going back to just communication, right? There's two ways to say things. One is constructive, and the other side is destructive, right? And your words matter, right? We've all grown up, right? And we're speaking English today, but it doesn't matter what language you pick. You have a choice every time you choose a word in your vocabulary, whether it's destructive or constructive. And you can choose from respecting yourself, respecting people around you, respecting your family, respecting the people that work with you, about how you choose and when you choose to use those types of words. And I think being just self-aware of, hey, I could say this, and I can, if somebody makes a mistake, and I can bury them, or I can figure out how to pick them up and how they can learn from that mistake and get better from it. Right. And those things to me are very big, and they're just foundational to proper communication.
And so, as you say that, it makes perfect sense, and it's just not always easy for all of us to do all the time. Is there some kind of methodology or thing you think back on that helps you be as good as you can at that, at that approach of communicating, how to remember to pick them up, how to pause when you see something that isn't working and you're not necessarily happy with it, but how to pause to make it a constructive event, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think look, this goes back. I've spent years studying sports psychology when I was an athlete, to now it's emotional intelligence as someone in business, to understand how do you utilize emotion to prove points, right? And how do you use it as a tool in your toolkit and bring it out at the right moment so that it actually serves a purpose. And so in thinking about this is, how do I go about making sure I understand a situation, right? So an example is, you go into a situation and you have two colleagues that are at each other's throat. How do you de-escalate, right? And that could be with a customer. It could be, in this situation, two colleagues. But how do you de-escalate the situation, right? They're already emotionally charged, right?
Right.
How do you show them respect for their positions without escalating the emotional charge, another degree, right?
Right.
And how do you bring the situation calm? And I always find, and this goes to my consulting training, is the power of questions, right? The best way to disarm somebody is to get them to be able to show and demonstrate their expertise, right? By being able to, you can turn every statement into a question, right? I always tell folks that work with me, I'm like, look, generally, there's not questions. I generally don't ask questions I don't already know the answer to or have a strong opinion about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not paying folks for my opinion. I'm paying them for their opinion. And my opinion can be swayed by what they say. So how do I go in and get answers for or solutions for that, right? And you go into a company, generally companies know they have a problem, right? CEOs, boards of directors, they know they have a problem. The answers are generally somewhere in the line. They're not getting proper communication. They hire a consulting firm. The consulting firm interviews a ton of people.
Right.
By the art of asking questions, they're able to uncover multiple solutions and take it back, and on top of compare that to what they've heard from other companies and all their experience. And they're able to go in and say, hey, and present that back. A lot of times there's solutions that have been renamed, repackaged, however you want to call it, that have worked other places, right? And the end of the day, I look at it as the people that work there, they're the best, most knowledgeable. It's you bringing it out of them, right? And
Absolutely.
there's never a bad solution or a bad idea. It's about timing of ideas, right? So there's just may have been bad timing, right?
That's a good point.
And over time, that idea may have evolved and gotten better, and the timing may then match the idea. And as a consultant, that's your job, is to flush that out so that they can rethink about what are the good ideas of the moment. And sometimes they're old ideas.
That's a great point. Absolutely. And making sure you understand completely what people are getting at. One person I talked about a long time ago, I talked to him. He was in the media business, newscasting in Chicago. And he talked about an example of when a reporter himself comes up to interview somebody who hasn't been interviewed before, and they start talking and they may not be making any sense or answering the question directly. He said, instead of running into the next question, he says he'll stop and give them some time to gather themselves and go back to the point. And he says, generally speaking, you'll find that it's much clearer and understandable and to the point the second time around. And that space, as you were talking about, to give people is so critical to making sure you really understand where they're coming from and what their issues are. I think it's a great point. So what would you say you're most proud of as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that is something near and dear to my heart, right? I look at it as I develop people. And, I think if I wasn't in business, I think I'd be a coach, right? A professional coach more of coaching kids, right? And being able to go out there and develop, right? Develop, boys and girls into men and women, right? That can be good citizens. And what I take most pride in business is how do I go out and make sure that everyone understands, hey, we're going to work hard, but we're also going to have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, the folks that you've been able to touch in your career and watch them move on and have success, and you can say that you had one little part in it, I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. 100%. No doubt about it. So in terms of leaders then, who's a leader that maybe most influenced you?
Yeah, I mean, there's numerous leaders I've had, right? So everyone has, their heroes in life, right? Starts with your parents and goes to coaches that you've had, or teachers that you've had, or bosses that have hired you and developed you. One in particular that just really has impacted my life that I've studied and is Pat Riley, right? The president of the Miami Heat. He's somebody that I've followed since I was a little boy, right? And him as the Laker coach, he wrote a book called The Winner Within that I read when I was in college, and it changed the way I led on my collegiate team. And they talk about the Miami Heat way and the type of players they look for. And I think the type of players they look for are guys, one, that respect the game, right? That have the integrity to put in the work, to prepare. And if you watch him and what he says, he talks about, there's winning and there's misery. But that's about how much he respects the game, right? And putting in the work. And if you watch Coach Spo, who's the Miami Heat coach now, and you watch his press conferences, something that always sticks with me is don't ever read your press releases or get too caught up in them, right? Because those headlines, you're never as good as they say you are, and you're never as bad either.
Right.
And how do you go about staying the course? Right? Believe in what you're doing, commit to it, commit to each other, and good things will happen, right? You're not guaranteed success in anything, but if you apply the right attitude, apply the right work rate, commit to your teammates, be a lifelong learner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of whatever game you're playing, right? The game of life. You will win more than you lose, right? At the end of the day, we're going to lose at things, right? It's just the nature of being human,
Yeah,
and competition, period. But
absolutely.
how do we make sure that we are winning more than our fair share?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And developing others, as you said, is part of the winning. It's not always what do I get personally out of the winning. It's what do we get out of the winning. It's
Right.
important.
Well, I mean, look, winning without friends is not fun. And to be able to share the winning experience as you get into your career and you have more complex deals and you have to have more people on the team working and to help develop each and every one of them as a leader, and watch them and how they celebrate the success. I mean, that's a fun time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the concepts you've raised and the experiences you framed this in have been excellent, I think, for our listeners, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else you want to add at this point?
No, I mean, hey, Charlie, I thank you for investing the time with me, and I hope I brought a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of fun to your listeners, and I think what you're doing is great. So I think keep it up, and happy to come join you anytime.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to thank Phil Wellington for being with us today, and I especially want to thank you for listening to this episode of The Power of Respect. If you like what you heard today, please consider sharing the podcast and visit our website at expertsinhow.com. And a quick reminder, if you'd like to read my book, The Power of Respect in Business, is available on Amazon. Thanks again for listening, and remember, respect builds trust, and trust builds relationships, and relationships are the foundation of leadership. Thank you.
This has been the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Leichtweis, author of the book, The Power of Respect in Business. To listen to more episodes and to learn about Charlie's leadership development programs, visit his website, expertsinhow.com.